On behalf of Southern California Public Radio, KPCC, welcome to Speak the Speech, a forum on learning language through performance. I'm Charlotte Dern. I'm a producer here at KPCC. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what we do here, we're a multi-platform organization. We're on the air, we're in person like today, and we're also online. Thank you for all of our members and listeners who are here today. And for those of you who want to learn more about KPCC, some of the in-person events that we do, you can check out our website at kpcc.org/inperson. Again, it's great to see all of you here. Today, the forum is focusing on art education, in particular theater, and how it can be used to learn a language. We have a great panel here, and I'm so excited to see all of you. Just a note for housekeeping, make sure you turn off your cell phones, you don't need to turn off your cell phones, just put them to mute and make sure that the flash is turned off. We are live streaming this event, so we want to get the best audio quality possible. Again, thank you for coming, and now I'd like to introduce our host of today's forum. That is our arts education reporter, Priska Neely.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your Sunday afternoon with us. I'm Priska Neely, arts education reporter here, as Charlotte just said. And I want to just jump in here, and we're going to just introduce this lovely panel that we have. First is Kate Randolph. She's a professional actor and a teaching artist. Come on up, Kate. Next, Jim Koontz. He's the ELD coordinator at John Muir Middle School in Burbank. Glenna Avila is the artistic director of Cal Arts Community Arts Partnership. And Leon Bruyette is an education professor at the University of California, Irvine. So thank you all so much for being here. There's so much going on in arts education. It's one of the reasons that I have this job, where I get to report on all the interesting things that are going on. And today, we're going to talk about the intersection of performing arts and language learning. The number of school-age children learning English is, of course, up all across the country, and here in California, nearly a quarter of the students in public schools are English learners. So there are a lot of gaps, there are a lot of issues that we could talk about, but today we're going to focus on one of the ways that we can help children learn English, and we're going to focus on performing arts and theater. And I want to start small with a very specific example. I did a story earlier this year about a program at John Muir Middle School in Burbank, and that's where Jim Koontz and Kate Randolph have been working together. And I want to start by getting a little bit of information about that program. So Jim, can you first just kind of tell us about the class and what you'd been doing, what you kind of do regularly, and then how Kate got involved?
The class that we worked with, classes, it was ELD 1, 2, 3, and 4, so 4 different levels and 2 different teachers. And it had come about 4 years ago, just the Music Center had a grant, and we were introduced to Kate and a couple other artists as well, and just kind of grew and saw that we could incorporate theater and drama into our classes. And at first I was a little, questionable about theater and ELD students, especially my beginning students. I'm very protective of them, I guess, but as things, progress through the past 4 years, it's turned out to be a very good experience.
Yeah, so we hear a lot about arts integration on all different levels, but Kate, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you were doing? Why does this make sense? Why did this make sense?
Well, it requires speaking and listening skills, which is an integral part of Common Core, but it's very natural to incorporate theater rather than students just sitting with a piece of literature or a piece of poetry and having an intellectual discussion about something they are only remotely interested in. When they are going to perform it, it suddenly becomes relevant. And so we're able to have a conversation about the content that they might not otherwise have. And we sit down in circles and talk about, well, what does it mean to hold fast to your dreams, and what are your dreams? And it gets very real. What are your dreams? And at first they answer it theoretically because they think that's what you want. And then you ask them again, and you prod until they answer you honestly. And you start to be able to have something concrete so that when they say those words, suddenly it really has depth.
Right. So this was a program incorporating poetry and performance, and it culminated with a big performance in front of the school. And we have a clip that we want to play. And here the students are performing Langston Hughes, which you were just talking about.
Dreams. Hold fast to dream.
For if dreams die,
Life is a broken winged bird.
that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams.
For when dreams go, life is a barren field.
Frozen with snow.
So, yeah, and we're actually going to be, I think hopefully there's some of the students who are involved with that in the audience here. We're going to hear more from them later. So, Jim, you mentioned that you were a bit skeptical at first. And so kind of what changed your mind here? So now that you've been doing this for a few years, what changes did you see in the students?
How they bring themselves to it, and they open up, and they're honest. Middle schoolers are always honest, but they just they have no fear, and to see them, take the material that is Langston Hughes or Emily Dickinson or some of the parts and pieces that we've intermingled with the performance, and just bring it to life and truly understand it and perform it and talk about it together in a group, and socialize and converse, and that, I guess that's what I mean by honest. It's truly working with the material and learning it.
Yeah, and also so engaging with the text, but also just teaching them some kind of presentation skills that can help them generally. We have another clip, and so this was at the end of that performance that we just saw. The students kind of showed off some of the techniques that they had learned in class, and we'll have you talk a little bit more about that after we see this.
Articulation. What does it mean? Articulation. What does it mean?
Okay,
So they were able to share kind of what it does mean. And Kate, talk a little bit more about that and some of the basics that you taught them.
Well, a lot of times when I start a residency, the classroom teacher may assume that we're going to put on a play. But what I feel is most valuable is just basics, just basic theater skills, which is how to hold your body and how to have focus and how to project your voice and articulate your sounds. Simple as that. But at the beginning of a residency, what I will introduce to them is that they are actors in training. And that kind of excites them because they live in a town where they see this all the time, acting, and it holds a great deal of value and celebrity in our neck of the woods. So they already sit up kind of straighter because they're actors in training, and that they're going to transform, and we have a conversation of what transformation means, and thanks to Transformers, they know what it means. No matter what country they come from, they know that it means to change from a robot to a car, or from an actor in training to an expert. And so in the first couple of classes, we really are drilling just how to stand, how to focus, how to be heard, and how to be understood. So what that student was trying to teach our audience is articulation. And we basically I start with them simply imitating. It's just a simple call and response, which I have found, I mean, initially I did that with kindergartners, but I've found that it works with adults. It doesn't matter what my audience is that I'm teaching, so it's just simply, and they repeat it. You may do it. Articulation. What does it mean?
What does it mean?
Say your words clearly.
Say your words clearly.
So it seems so simple and maybe even silly, but it's amazing how human beings just love rhythm and simplicity and call and response. And so for English language learners, this is so ideal because they don't feel silly because everybody's doing it, and yet it's slow enough for them to understand it and repeat it. And then I will have them look at words around the room, and every classroom has many, many words. And they will find words that end in consonants, and we'll have that conversation too. And speak that word clearly, and they'll find a word, speak. And then they'll have everybody repeat, speak, prompt, prompt. And so they get to really slow these words down, and they're emphasizing saying them clearly, but at the same time, they're saying them. And so
Right.
the English language learners are having an opportunity to speak English correctly and feel greater confidence each time they open their mouths.
Right. And the students in this particular class all came from really interesting backgrounds, and you kind of took this to another level and had them write their own poetry about their experience coming here. But I want to talk a little bit more about that later. Leon Briette, you're an education professor, and this is something that you've studied a lot, kind of the ways that arts integration can really help with language acquisition. And one of the things that we talked about is, of course, oral literacy comes first. You have to be able to speak before you're not teaching a baby just to read, You have to speak first. Can you just tell us a little bit more about why this works, why it makes sense?
Right, exactly. The oral language comes first, and oral language includes vocabulary and comprehension. And then if a child is going to read their native language, all they're doing is learning to recognize those words on the page. The problem in California is that 1 in 4 kids coming into kindergarten speak another language besides English at home. And if we don't recognize that they have to grasp the oral language first before they can read and write, then they're really put at a disadvantage. And the great irony of No Child Left Behind is that English language arts is defined by achievement on written tests, which means reading and writing. And if the focus becomes preparing children, even though kindergartners, first, second grade didn't take the STAR tests, etc., they still, sometimes that pressure to achieve in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade affects the curriculum in K2. And so they don't get the oral language skills. Instead, you have these reading blocks, which are very inflexible. And it really puts these students at a disadvantage at the same time that the state legislature and other people in authority think that they're actually boosting their achievement by this narrow focus on reading and writing. They're actually undermining it. And so theater brings back the oral language, and it's just a wonderful gift to these kids.
Glenna Avila, I just wanted to hear from you and how what your program is at CalArts and how that started.
So many people don't know that CalArts, which is an arts college located about 30 miles north of here, has been engaged in working in arts education for the last 26 years. And we have, for the past about 10, 12 years, have been working with English language learning students and bringing theater to them to help with their English language learning, and also everything else, their socialization, their development as young adults. And we've seen some remarkable things happen in these programs. One of the things that we do, these are some pictures from some of our classroom activities, is we start with theater games, and as everybody knows, children learn through playing, and so playing is part of theater. And for these students, we bring in a team of graduate students who are acting students in our graduate program, and they play with them. And it's almost a 1-to-2 ratio in the classroom of our MFA actors working with these students. So we start with theater games, and these kids come from upwards of 20 different countries, and this is their first experience in an American school. And they immediately get the theater games, and then we gradually bring in vocabulary games, and then improvisation, which is an incredible tool in helping with language development. And we even invented games. We invented a game called Remote Control, and the student who had the remote control got to determine what was being shown on the stage by the other students. And so they learn interaction and they learn language, and it's just it's really it's fun for them. It's fun for our students, and the teachers that we work with also learn a lot of new approaches and activities to bring to their students.
And just to build on that briefly, memory is affected by emotional engagement. So we remember things better if we're experiencing an emotion at the time, especially a good emotion, but even aversive emotions have that effect. And so if they're engaged, they will remember much better than if they're just, doing it out of a book or something. So, yeah.
It's true. And you were right that a lot of teachers expect that we're going to come out at the end with a theater production or a big play. And we didn't start out that way. We started out mostly just working on the process of it. But as the program developed over the years, the students actually wanted to do some theater productions. And so we started with the literature that they were using in their classroom. One year we did Wizard of Oz with them. And they wrote the whole play. They invented it based on the Wizard of Oz. There was also a book called Seed Folks by Paul Fleischman, which was being used in their classroom about a diverse group of neighbors that all lived in this building together and how they interacted with each other. And it was like our classroom. So there's a lot of connections to literature as well.
And when this got started 10, 12 years ago, was there skepticism from you as well, or?
No, I didn't have skepticism because I've seen how the arts can impact students and how they can transform students' lives. So I'm a firm believer in it. Our challenge was finding those teachers who were just excited to embrace a new method of reaching the students and willing to give up their 1 hour or 2 hours of their ELL classes in English to come with us on this experiment.
Jim, I see you nodding aggressively.
I agree. I was the skeptic. I was the, and I think it was first posed like, we were doing, the example was something like Death of a Salesman or whatever. I'm like going, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are just learning? I don't think so. And then when we were in professional development and we started, the teachers were doing the exercises with the artists, and one of the exercises was just how to say hello differently with different connotations. And hello, say it like you're sad, say it like you're mad. And as it started going, it just started to click that finally you're like, oh, this, and as Kate was saying, it's the art, it's the process involved. It's not, the production winds up being an end piece, but it's all the pieces that you connect throughout it that, there's where the real learning occurs. And I agree, I was a skeptic, and now, as you can see, I'm not.
I think also that it's the relationships, right? Relationships are so much of why it works, that the artist needs to also compromise and be so sensitive to the classroom teachers, what's on their plates. It helps for me that my husband is a classroom teacher. And as of 2 years ago, he is now an English language. He works with ELLs. He was thrown in the week before school started. He works for LAUSD. And week before school started, he was informed that he was going to be the ELD teacher with no training. And so I, as an artist, have this firsthand knowledge of what a classroom teacher, what's thrown at a classroom teacher and what's on the agenda from day to day and in terms of grading and testing and blah, 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 blah. So there's flexibility and a willingness on the part of the classroom teacher, but there also needs to be the same on the part of the artist to be sensitive to that, but also to be constantly willing to compromise, constantly willing to say, I am here to support you. I am here to support you. I am here to support you. I want to make your job easier. I want to take one thing that you have to teach off your plate, and you can say, that's done. I don't have to teach that because we covered that with Kate, you know? So relationships are so much a part of it, and I think it's not only relationships, we model that. It's so wonderful to be collaborative because we're modeling that for the kids. And then they see that collaboration and they're sensitive to it, and this emotional connection, they start to open up because they get the caring that we share. And care is also why they are willing to learn, because they can feel that we care and that the trust, they're already opening. It's coming at academics from a completely non-academic point of view.
Yeah, and every classroom is a little bit different. So all of these partnerships have to be unique. But Leon, you've developed some curricula around this. And what are the kind of basics in terms of incorporating? Yeah.
We served on K2, 30 schools down in San Diego, 15 from 2007 to 2010, and then another 15 from 2010 up to 2014. And we were inspired. We knew that oral language was necessary. And in Southeast San Diego, there's a lot of neighborhoods where the signs even on the stores are in Spanish, so kids come to school, and it's just a strange environment. They know very little English, and the instinct of anyone in a strange environment is to kind of sit still and be quiet. And the teaching artists came in. We had teaching artists that came in every week for an hour into all of those classrooms for about a year. And it really opened the kids up. Dramatic play is something that kids do naturally. You see them out in the playground playing house, playing superhero, etc. And once they get into that mode, this self-consciousness that makes you afraid to really speak, to take a chance, fell away. And they started talking. And you get that environment in which kids learn to speak at home. They can tell what mom and dad are saying after a while just from the context. And that was happening in the classroom. And with the older kids, like second grade, they'd be reading a story and then they'd play a scene from it. And by saying the lines, feeding all that into their own experience space, they would suddenly understand how the characters felt. They'd understand the plot. It would all become much clearer than it had been before. So we came in as an academic, as PI on the grant. It was a theory. And then I saw the teaching artists and I saw the teachers and the students make it their own, and it came to life. And I was inspired by what they made of it. So we were very lucky. We had an article in the Reading Teacher, which is a well-known journal for practitioners, and then from Reading Research Quarterly, showing our results. We were able to boost CELT scores in 1 year of this. So, yeah.
So you got actual data. Which
Oh
is
yeah, we have
a lot
data.
of times
And if
in
anyone
arts
wants
ed.
it, it's in the April issue of Reading Research Quarterly. So we felt really good about that. Random assignment and the whole bit.
And Glenna, what types of changes have you seen? Are there particular students who come to mind?
Well, I think I was telling you about we had a student who was from China, and she was incredibly shy. She was very withdrawn. She didn't have any background in English, and she stuck with our program for 2 years, and at the end of the 2 years, this was a student who was front and center on stage, volunteering for everything, standing straight and tall, and speaking English. And it's just amazing to see. And I know we all have those stories, but these were students at Arroyo Seco Middle School up near CalArts. And we had a wonderful principal, Rondi Duran, who's there, and wonderful teachers, Sarah Ford and Juliet Fine, and these students were able to learn vocabulary and language through playing with theater in a way that I had never really seen before. We had done some work with ELL students in high school, up at Hart High School near CalArts, and that was a creative writing program. And one thing I wanted to say about English language learners is that we in this country don't look at these students as having a huge reservoir of talent, and the fact that they can speak more than one language is huge and should be celebrated. And what we were able to do in the high school program was the students were allowed to write in their own home language, and then we did a lot of translation, which is also a way of learning different languages. And so not only did each individual student learn how to translate their own home language to English, but every other student in the class learned other languages as well. So it was, I see this as a great exchange and a way of honoring these students, and not always looking at them as having a deficit.
Jim, has having Kate in the classroom changed what you do after, so you're there for 10 weeks or something like that. So after she's gone, does it change what you do in the classroom? Do you find yourself doing the articulation?
I will use the word articulation. We don't have to clap it the minute I say it. They know that they need to pronounce that final consonant, or say that word correctly. A phrase. It's more than a phrase. Be seen, be heard, be felt, and be understood. And whenever we're public speaking, whenever we're reading, whenever we're in a group with anybody, those four things translate. And that's probably been something from the very first year that has, always been a consistent. And the kids, when they speak publicly, they take on a different attitude and behavior. They stand up tall. They, you can say focal point, and they know exactly that they're not, they're not focused. They're not making contact with their eyes. And so, yeah, a lot of the techniques and strategies absolutely are incorporated and continue to be incorporated.
Yeah, Leon, I wanted to go back to what you started talking about with the emotional side of this. Mm-hmm. And, I think we can all kind of think back to middle school, elementary school, and just remember being scared about something, just mm-hmm. not comfortable learning. The teacher calls on you and you're afraid, mm-hmm. you're not, just in any class. I think it's really interesting the way that, taking this out and putting it in a new setting where maybe you're channeling another character and you're adding another emotion, and how that can really change the mindset of learning and make things stick more.
Yeah, and it becomes a group thing. It builds community in the classroom. That's what I've noticed. Talking to the teachers, they say, this year's class was different because we did all those theater games. And the kids came to trust one another because you make yourself a bit vulnerable. But then when you do that and it works, there's a bonding among the kids. And that carries over even when they're not doing this. So there's less self-consciousness and more engagement. So the social emotional part is also very important. They kind of mutually enable the relaxation, then the good experience, then the memory, then the confidence that comes from that.
Right. And I know you've seen that in your classroom, just from the little time that I spent there. Lots of children from different countries kind of forming these new bonds.
Yeah, we had that experience, I think, each year, and then it got stronger and stronger because some of them started as EL1, and then this was my fourth year of working with Jessica and Jim. And so we had some students who had experienced this 3 times in a row, and so they were the ones who were showing that they were the experts. They were taking the lead when we divide into groups and they're going to do a choral recitation. They were taking the lead, teaching the others, really standing up and showing everybody else how to do it, and with great pride. The very first time, this year, the very first time that we had them divided into groups, it was only like session 3. And we gave them their poems and said, okay, now you're going to start to examine what these mean. And then at the end of the class today, we're going to have one group get up and show us, you're going to recite it together as a group, and maybe add some gestures, but this was very early on. This one group got up, the group of 6 boys, and it was the one that had, one of the boys had been in it for 3 years, and they just wowed us. Class number 3, they wowed us with it was very moving how they interpreted the poem and put gestures in it, included pauses. It's like, how could they be so far along in class 3? It's because they had 1 or 2 boys who had done it before, who just took the lead and acted as directors.
So what we've heard here, this sounds really great, really promising strategy. What are some of the challenges to getting something like this implemented? There's always a funding question. There's always, like we talked about, some of the skepticism in getting your school to go along with it. What are some of the challenges? And then I guess on the other hand, resources. Glenna, do you want to start?
Well, I think some of the challenges are, like you said, funding, paying for visiting theater artists to come into the classrooms, I think is huge. But there's a lot of resources available for schools, in particular in Los Angeles County, through the Los Angeles County Arts Commission's Arts for All program. And I know your school district is involved in that. There's 81 school districts throughout LA County, and right now, not all of them are part of this program. It's free for school districts, and they get planning coaches, they write their own arts plans, and then they actually get opportunities to apply for funding through the county. So there's funds available for schools through this great program, and I'm on the executive committee of it, so I'm giving them a little plug. But it really, there's no excuse for school districts. They can get involved, and it doesn't cost them anything.
Leon, are there other resources that come to mind?
Yes, very recently, the state has ruled that Title I funds can be used for these art programs. We were able to show in San Diego that we actually boosted attendance. We did some research looking at attendance on the days they didn't have the arts programs and on days that they did have the arts programs. And since we had arts programs all 5 days, there was no, it was balanced, the research. So we found that we got a 10% boost in some schools. And that really convinced some people that this was a really good way. It was increasing engagement. It was increasing oral language. And so they're now using the Title I funds, and that really gives a much bigger pot of money for art supporters.
Yeah, and I know we were talking a little bit before about credentialing and how a lot of people may not know this, but in this state, actually in this room, maybe a lot of people do know, but there are no credentials for theater or dance, and maybe that will change. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah,
but that is also part of it. I know that's something. Leon, go ahead.
Yes, Senator Ben Allen from Santa Monica has put forward Senate Bill 916 to create a theater and a dance credential for California, and we're one of only 2 states to say that doesn't have it. And this is really valuable. There is so much that theater could add back into, for example, the English language arts curriculum. Oral language is part, officially, of the English language arts curriculum, but because of No Child Left Behind and because of the pressure to raise reading and writing achievement levels, it has kind of dropped out. And here we are as the state in the United States that has the most English learners, and we're not teaching oral language, which is so basic. And at the same time, we're talking all over the country about childhood obesity. And dance, especially for little girls, is such a wonderful way. You know, dance actually gives you more exercise than a lot of the usual games you play in phys ed. For example, in softball, baseball, a lot of the kids are just standing there waiting for the ball to come, right? In soccer, you know, in elementary school at least, a lot of them are waiting for the ball to come their way. In dance, they're moving. We have dance teams at UCI, and they are among the most fit people we have. It's great.
I want to go back to the class that we started with here, and so we talked a lot about the social and emotional part of this, and so talk to us about what you did differently with the class this year. They wrote their own poetry.
Yeah, at the end of the program last year, we sat down together, Jessica, Jim, and I, and just were brainstorming, and I suggested, why don't we have such a wealth of experiences with these children coming from all these different countries, and why don't we, instead of them just doing the movement section and doing the recitation of memorized published poetry, why don't we have them write something from their own personal experience, and add that element to the performance. So Jim came up with a template, and originally I think we were going to call it American Tapestry. We were bouncing around ideas of what to call it, because the United States is such a tapestry of, we're all immigrants, we're children of immigrants. So how do we really capitalize and give them a chance to be more expressive? And so it morphed into Homeland, and that was the template. And they wrote, they filled in the blanks. They filled in the blanks of what they see and what they hear and what they worry about and what they pray for and what they determine, and all in relationship to their homeland. And the teachers gave those to me before the holidays. And this year we divided the 10 weeks, it was 5 sessions before the holiday break and 5 sessions afterwards. So I took their stack of writing, and I told them afterwards I spent my holidays weeping, because I literally sat on my living room carpet and reading what they wrote, and even thinking about it now, it was so powerful, you know.
Extremely. I mean, I was
Right?
only there for the rehearsal, and I'm there with my microphone recording this, and I'm like, getting choked up.
I wonder if the wallpaper is still on my wall. I wonder if my friends will remember me.
Yeah, I wonder if I'll see my grandparents again.
I wonder if I'll see my grandparents ever again. I worry about the war in Syria. I hope war will stop. I hope I can go back home. Just things that for us we take for granted, that this is what's on their minds. And so I culled these together, and just some of them, the entire thing that they wrote was poetry. So a couple of them, I just arranged it so that they could recite everything that they wrote. But it wasn't possible for everybody to recite everything that they wrote, and some of it was somewhat mundane. So we just picked out the parts that were, that really just, whoa. And every one of them had some sentence where you went, whoa, I smell my mom making cookies in the kitchen. Personal, and I know the teachers were prodding them to not be imitating other poets, right, and being lofty, and no, make it just concrete to your experience. What do you see and smell? Because that's what's going to move people, not some esoteric thing that you read in somebody else's poetry. And so they got them to be more concrete. We put it together, and that was integrated into the performance for the first time, and I think that's what made it the most powerful, that in between the recited, memorized poetry, they stepped forward in groups and just shared one sentence.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there were some that really were, kind of concrete poems on their own, and we want to play a clip from one of those now. This is a student named Michelle.
Home is my grandpa's classic red Volvo. I wonder if it still has its shiny red color. I pretend my grandpa is taking me to school. I feel the warm hug he gives me before he drops me off. I worry if he will get home safe. I remember home when my grandpa made me hot chocolate so I will feel warm. Home is my grandpa's classic red Volvo.
Is Michelle here? Oh, there you are. Hi. Well, that was such a great poem.
Oh, I'm so glad he's here.
And we're going to give you a mic there. And hi, Michelle. Nice to see you again.
Hi everyone.
And so first, can you just tell everyone how old you are and where did you come here from? I mean, where did you coming to America?
I am 13 years old and I come from Iran, Tehran. The city is Tehran.
And when you were writing this poem, kind of what was going through your mind?
When I was writing this poem, I really remember my grandpa and how kind he was, how loving he was to me, and I just wrote something and then I made corrections and then Miss Kate fixed it all and I had a great thing, which now everyone is listening to it.
And you've been in this program for a few years now, right?
This was my second year because this was my second year in middle school and I had it in both years.
And, I know you've heard us up here saying lots of great things about, what performing arts can do when children are learning English. But, does that ring true for you? What did it do for you?
It really helped me in my talking. I was so afraid in talking and I kept saying fast and no one really understood me. But after this performance, I understand that I had to articulate and project my voice so everyone would understand me.
Miss Kate, you're so proud, right?
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Did you have any other questions for him? Anything else you want him to share since you? No? Okay. Thanks so much, Michelle. Is anyone else here from Muir Middle School? Hi. We'll get you a microphone. What's your name?
My name's Eric, and I'm 14 years old.
And so how long were you in with Miss Kate?
This is my second year, and yeah, I was in this program from the 7th grade and 8th.
Great. What did you learn, or what was the biggest thing that you learned?
Like, I had to talk in front of many audience and not be stressed out.
Yeah, even being here right now, you're doing great. Thanks so much for sharing. Where did you come to America from?
Oh, I came from Iran, Tehran.
Great. Thanks so much for coming here today.
You're welcome.
In their class this year, they were from 15, right? 15 different countries.
I'll agree.
15.
I don't do numbers.
And so I feel like maybe people in this room, people watching online, may have heard these stories and kind of great testimonials and want to do something like this in their classroom. What's an important first step for making this work? So you need to find a partnership. How do you get started if you want to do something like this?
Like I said, the partnership first started with the Music Center, and then their funding ran out, so we moved over to BAFA, our local Arts for All, and from then we just continued to, fund and speak with principals and administrators and get the word out. Jessica has been very good at, this year making let people see what you're doing. I don't think a lot of people get to see what's in the classroom, and they don't see these things going on and the impact that they do have. And this is a great opportunity for people to see what what this can do for students, for teachers, for communities. And then after that, it's a matter of finding a way to work it into the curriculum. And you were talking about challenges, and that, for me as a teacher in the classroom, yes, doing drama is fantastic, but these kids have 2 periods of English and they've lost their elective, so to speak. And how do I incorporate something like theater or drama or music into the day, but yet still address the standards that I, as a teacher, am going to be held responsible for on state testing, and develop the kids academically and move them on. But there's a lot of things that go into it, but funding and finding a good partner like Kate, who's fantastic, and just trying to be creative.
Right. That's definitely a concern that I hear every time I talk to a teacher about any type of arts integration related thing. It's just kind of the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, Leon?
And one thing that the state has done that could be really helpful, there's the new English language development standards. And there's also a document that ties those new standards, English language development, to the Common Core that are on the state website. And those are really helpful so that you don't have to actually, when we created our San Diego curriculum, we looked at the theater standards, the English language arts standards, the English language development standards, and sat there literally with highlighters. Okay, this is where there's a match, this is where there's a match. And the state is actually doing that for you now. Hallelujah.
To make the, if you need to make the case.
To make it easier, to make it easier.
It also, you helped us get the word out. I mean, by just coming and then doing the story. Sure. I'm now at another school in Jordan's middle school, in another school in Burbank, because they heard the story. And so the ELD teacher there and the principal jumped very fast and just asked me, write a proposal, and I did, and I'm there. It happened within a month, just by getting the word out, by getting the word out, And I think, it goes back to relationships and heart and the ground floor. You were saying that it takes one teacher, it takes 2 teachers, and then I don't think it's going to come from the top. I think it's got to come from the bottom, percolating. I know when we did this the first year with the Music Center, and Peggy knows this, that we developed a relationship so that the following year, when the Music Center money wasn't there anymore, it was like, can we take this farther? How can we take this farther? So I think it's an investment on everybody who believes in it. To take the initiative. I mean, I've done the same thing. I've gone through the Common Core standards with a highlighter to find the things that I do that support them, so that I'm taking the initiative. I'm not just bringing what I do. I'm trying to find the connections, and I think it takes that, on the part of everybody who's involved, who sees that it's valuable.
And I think there's many principals who don't know now that they can use Title I money to bring in artists.
Right, and that's a recent conversation that's becoming more common. Great. Well, I wanted to open it up to our audience here. There are quite a few of you here. Thanks so much again for being here. And if anyone has any either questions or personal experiences that you wanted to share, we'd love to hear from you. I see one person there.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ruben Rios, and I'm an elementary school principal in LAUSD, Southgate. I see my partner friend here, Jill. But at Liberty Boulevard, what we've started is Language in Play, which is a theater arts performance for EL students and for 4th graders. And it's a curriculum designed by the actor and artist Tony Plana, and through the East LA Classic Theater. So they grant-funded 3 schools in Southgate, and we were one of the blessed ones to receive the program for 1 year. So what we're doing for next year to expand, we've written a grant and applied through the Riordan Foundation, the Innovation Grant, and we're on the 2nd phase, which is the final phase of writing for the grant. But that's just one way that, we're partnering with different organizations and funding sources. The teacher who has done the 64 hours with his 4th grade students, He's been teaching for 30 years. He's a wonderful teacher. His name is Terry Shostitis. And every week he comes enthusiastically to tell me, Mr. Rios, you got to see the kids. You got to see what they're doing. I have one kid, Carlos, who is quiet, silent, taciturn. He never speaks in class. And what he learned in the theater class, he transferred in the classroom by volunteering to help another student with an assignment. And he speaks up, he stands up straight and tall, proud, and he projects. So he says, so I really see this changing the students and building their self-efficacy, their self-confidence, and it's gonna just empower them for many, many, many years. So I think, theater and performance is wonderful for the students, and it really will change their lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear from you as a principal, too. Okay, we have other mics coming around.
Hi, I'm David Levine. I just actually heard about this on the radio, and there's a couple of people I know up there. Hi, Glenn, and hi, Kate. I didn't know they'd be here. I was brought by my wonderful art, music teacher, Dan Osterman. But I presently teach at a school called the School of History and Dramatic Arts, and we put the name in the title so they could never take it away from us. And I've worked and done these types of work with students, and not only is it amazing for ELD students, but special ed students really can flower in theater arts. And a lot of people, when their regular classroom teachers get SPED students, they're a little bit reserved. And for me, it's usually really sometimes not even noticeable. But I wanted to talk about one program we're doing now. We're working with Community Arts Partnerships. We're doing a program where our high school students went into the middle school, our local middle school. We shared story circles, and my students wrote a play, and that play is going to go on tour to the local middle schools about middle school students, acted by my students, done by the theater tech students there. And it's I love it because I pitched it as athletes always get to go and leave school in high school early and go for a game. So why shouldn't art students get the same opportunity to go out and be out in their community and actually do something and share their arts, not just in the classroom, but with other students? So yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing. I know we have some hands up in the front here.
Oh, thank you. Segueing off of what this gentleman just talked about, my question to you is, my wife and I run an after-school theater program, and what we keep seeing is kids who clearly may not be defined, but clearly have some learning issue, whether it's Asperger's, autism, or just learning differences of some kind. We also are parents of twins that are out of school dealing with learning differences. We see the efficacy of theater with these kids, but I was curious, you mentioned data for all, kids who are learning English languages, but for the kids who are LD or have, again, some sort of learning issue, is there data showing the efficacy of theater as well that you can use? And are there programs like the one you've developed as well that can work towards that base of kids?
I don't know if this is directly what you're asking, but there's an excellent clinic at UCLA called the Peers Clinic, P-E-E-R-S. It's directed by Elizabeth Laugesen, and it's a social skills clinic, but it also just helps them to express themselves, because many of the children with autism spectrum have trouble. They're socially awkward, and that makes them self-conscious, and it makes it even harder to learn. And they have really done very good work with them.
Okay. Yeah, and also, I think that we should probably, maybe we can post some of the links to the studies that you've done, because I know that in arts education there's always, a hunger for data. Mm-hmm. So we'll post those on the event page for this.
Let me just jump in for 1 second on this one, because we talked about this. We had an autistic boy in this last residency, but it's not unique. Actually, almost every residency that I lead, there's more than one. They're mainstream so often now. Excuse me. And this is anecdotal rather than statistical, but the result without exception is dramatic and dramatically positive. And Aram, in this last residency, the boys will testify, they incorporated him to just thrive to the point where you just didn't, he did not stand out in any way. And when we had the invited audience, and we asked the audience to ask them questions, he was raising his hand at every turn, and then we asked them if they would lead and teach the audience some of the skills that they learned. And he was first. He raised his hand about 4 times, and he came up and led one of the exercises. So it's very powerful.
Good afternoon. I'm Principal Dr. Miranda Raouf at Pio Pico Middle School in Los Angeles Unified School District. And one of your panelists know who I am. And I just want to say, first off, a prophet is not, sometimes not known. They're not welcome in their own hometown because you have something of value in your school and not recognize it. Kate has been coming out to Pio Pico for the last 2 years, and I have yet to see the students perform. I've been so busy, but I've trusted that she's come into the classroom and worked with the teacher, who is her husband, who I threw into ELD, to do this work. But one of the things that I knew about the teacher, and I'll just say this again, honoring you, Kate, to come in, to recognize, to hear the things that he needed assistance with and how to support. Because there are not many things out there, not many strategies out there to really support on that ground level, ensuring that students are able to articulate, are able to understand, are able to feel. It's really that boxed in, concrete type of routine, rote testing, assessments, and all those things that don't make learning for those students real. But you do that. And we know that you do that because we see, I hear about it, of course, that the students love you when you come to the school. And so one of the difficulties has been, looking for, like the principal said, funding. You have to be able to have that funding to bring in the arts. A lot of programs, or have someone there who's looking to find these resources and bring them into your school. So again, I want to honor you here. I had to come all the way to Pasadena. Thank you. And I honor you, but thank you so much, Kate.
Thanks for being here. Okay, I see a hand there.
Hi, I'm Max Schaefer. I'm on the board of the California Education Theater Association. And we've been pushing hard for many years trying to get credentialing for theater and dance for teachers. There's a big event next Tuesday in Sacramento where we're doing the California Youth in Theater and presenting programs and presentations to legislators. And I'm just wondering if the people up here are all in support of this credentialing idea for teachers.
Definitely, I would say. Yeah.
Second.
And I think the research is going your way. You were talking about the textbooks and the dryness. One of the things is, of course, research takes a long time to be reflected in the textbooks. And so the whole thing about oral language is known among psychologists, well known. It just takes a long time to get it, the textbooks revised and the acceptance of it. Yeah. So we're all for you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Kosei. I'm actually a graduate student currently pursuing social work, and in that capacity, I'm actually placed at CalArts, so I'm familiar with CAP, but I had sort of a more general question for all of the panelists. So I guess I was wondering if any of you all are English language learners as a second language, and sort of based off of that, whether that discrepancy or likeness in experience, sort of how that may inform the work that you all have been doing.
Interesting question.
It's a great question, and my answer is no. And how it informs my work is I have the deepest respect for the people that I'm teaching, because as Glenna said, this is asset that they may not see as such. And to me, to come to a country that is foreign and have, in many cases, they have more than one language, and they're way ahead of me, way ahead of me. So that's how it informs my work, is that I have deeper respect.
Actually, you could probably tell from my name, Leanne Bruyette, I started my career in Europe. And a lot of the methods I'm using, I learned over there through Waldorf schools and through the International Baccalaureate schools. They use a lot of the arts, drama, dance, music. And quite honestly, I kind of borrowed a lot of ideas and imported them.
I think that's a really great question, and it brings up a lot of other issues about teaching in the arts and how important it is for teachers to have that understanding and represent students, and for students to see themselves in the instructional staff. And I think that we're a long way from getting there, but in the Community Arts Partnership Program at CalArts, what we do is we try and put together teams of students from various backgrounds, so that if we're working with a multicultural group of students in a public school, that some of those students will be able to see themselves represented in the team that we put together. And that not only are we modeling, them seeing themselves represented, but also how a group of multicultural people can work together to create a great program, and therefore the students themselves can see how adults can navigate those cultural differences.
And no, I'm not a second language learner. My Armenian is, Barev, Vonsis, then Lavem, and I was taught Inchkachka. And that is about the extent of my second language skills. But you know what? They're people. They want to learn, and just having the respect for where they come from, the stories they have, the stories they've shared with us, and I may not speak more than one language, but that's what affects my work.
Okay. Hi, my name is Frank. That's fine. All right. Okay, whatever. My name is Frank Amiak. I'm a French. I come from France, and I'm an actor. I'm also working as a producer and a communication consultant. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience, because I've done a lot of this in France. And I've taught to kids. I've taught also to people in enterprises and also in colleges. And it's just amazing what acting can help, how acting can help, and how theater is a tremendous tool. I use a lot of improvisation also. And I've seen so many terrific outcomes, with this work, just from people who are, of course, stressed of speaking, and then at some point they come out, and something really happens. Also, I remember in the university where I was teaching, I took this group it was just like a couple days. We were doing like a teamwork workshop, and it was just unbelievable how they told me, it happened after 3 or 4 months, and they told me, well, we've been together for 3-4 months, we didn't know each other, and after these 2 days, we're friends. Just because I think acting is so close to life that, of course, you study a text and you understand what is in it, but also all your body, your voice, and everything is involved, and I really think it's an amazing tool. Just wanted to say a couple words.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I think that's just another, I always encourage people in arts education to, talk to each other. I hope everyone kind of sticks around after and talks to each other, gets to know, because in this room, it seems like there's so many interesting ideas and resources just here. Let's take one from this side of the room.
I'm Leslie Strauss, and I'm with Spirit Series, and it's a program that my husband started 15 years ago, and we work with 40,000 kids here in Los Angeles and in Massachusetts and in Maine. He started the program not as a literacy program, but a values education program. He was a screenwriter, and I'm getting a little choked up. He was a screenwriter, and his first wife died, and his daughter was about to start middle school, and she was in a crisis. And he wanted to do something for her and her peers, and he knew the power of story. And I think that's another piece of this conversation, how powerful story is to engage kids. So he wrote a play about the young prince of India who gave up everything to find a cure for suffering, Buddha Walks. And these very high-level kids did this play, and it was so transformative for them that he started this program. And we now have 6 plays, and we have been working in schools. What we do is we work with the whole grade. So every single classroom, whether it's an English language learning classroom or the mainstream kids who have special needs, each class performs the same play, and they see each other perform, and it is an extraordinarily transformative experience. And what we find is that the honors kids do this amazing performance, but the English language learners do an equally incredible performance, and it is so profound. And I'm so delighted that we're having this conversation. I feel like my husband came to it completely intuitively, as anybody who's involved in storytelling or theater would know, that when you get up on stage and you have to understand something and speak it and practice it and embody it, that's going to help you learn how to speak. And it's something that we all know, and I feel like we're finally getting to the place where educators are talking about it. And one other thing is that in our program, it's completely standards-based. He got very good advice very early on, and he was told if you want to do this during the school day, it needs to be based in the content standards. So it's English and history content standards, as well as the Common Core.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you. Okay, let's bounce back to this side of the room there. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Talma Schultz, and I'm an educator. I work with high school students and teachers. But my question to all of you is, can you speak a little bit about how you think about the scope and sequence of what you do day one with English language learners that are, level 1? How do you think about the progression of learning?
Do you mean not related to arts integration?
No,
but
no,
just
arts integration. So
okay.
when you come to do the theater work, right,
Mhm.
you have to think about where do you start, right? What's the sequence
Okay.
of day 1, day 2, day 3, first week, second week, third week? And these are students that don't know any English, and it's your first meeting, and here you are. So how do you, what's your thought process or your planning process?
Yeah, I
create
can
that
address it, then we
Kate,
can
you wanna-
pass the ball. My curriculum has evolved over the course of time that I've been doing it naturally. But in that first class, the very first thing that I do is perform. Always. It's the first thing I do. They come into the space. If I have a dedicated space, they will find me with my back to them, and they will all be talking amongst themselves. What is she doing? What is she? And then somebody figures out that I'm waiting for them to be quiet. Somebody figures it out, and or if I'm coming into the classroom space, I will do the same thing. I will come in, put my things down, and turn my back to them. And then I will turn around and perform. I do a show based on the life and poetry of Emily Dickinson. So most of the time what I start with is an Emily Dickinson poem, and she has a very accessible poem. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd banish us, It's very accessible. I say it slowly, and I use gestures. And most of the time, the takeaway is they get it. They get it from my face, from my gestures, from my emotion. So the next point that gets made is there's a universal language, and it's not English. It's the language of the heart. And so they can feel me. And so we're already bonded, And that's the starting point, is we have this mutual language of the heart. And then we will have a conversation. I mean, do you ever feel lonely? Do you ever feel sad? And that, do you think when you become a grown-up, those feelings don't continue? You know, do you ever feel victorious, happy, sad, all the human emotions? We all feel them, they never end. And so because of that, we have a bond, regardless of our language. So that's the starting point. And then we go to basics. We go to basics. I will explain that what I'm there for is for them to be my actors in training, and they get on their feet. And the first thing they learn is how they're going to stand. And they stand still. And everything is modeled. Everything I do is modeled. So I'm doing it with my body. And the first and most important lesson, I think, throughout the whole entire residency is how powerful you are, just as you are. So let me see it in the way you stand. Let me see it. Let me see how powerful you are. Let me see it in the way you focus your eyes. Before we even get to speaking or voice, it's just owning yourself, owning your body, being there and feeling fierce. Feeling fierce. That's lesson one. And then we go over it again the next time and add a little bit more and add a little bit more and a little bit more.
Glenna, did you want to talk about the starting point in your program?
So, yeah, I mean, it's not quite as poetic as what you just heard, but we start with really simple name games. And one that I can recall is students have to learn what an adjective is. They have to pick an adjective that starts with the first letter of their name. And then we go around the circle and everybody says, you know, their name. And I remember one of our students said, "I'm Radical Rob." And then, you know, and then so it goes like that in a circle. And then they have to repeat each other's name. And then you add a movement to it. And you go around again, and then it builds up a group dynamic, and it also helps everybody to learn everybody else's name. That's a very beginnings point.
Great. Let's go back over to this side here.
Hi there. My name is John Mazer. I'm proud to be on the board for Perfect Arts for All, and I love your program. Thank you. I don't have a question, it's more a comment. It seems like there's a tremendous bonus to these techniques and what you are doing. This is not a program about bullying, but it's like you're creating the community, you are addressing that as well. That, you know, you're preventing that, and that's a big problem in this country, as is obesity as well. And I just love that there are so many other extensions that you are creating for our schools and our community, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. By the way, this is something that we often put into the curriculum. We all respect each other because they do a lot of improv, and one of the things we emphasize is we respect each other, we're kind to each other, so it actually is part.
My name is Ruth Torres, and I actually have a question for Leanne. You said about Title I's, but have you been able to actually use Title I's? Did you find any programs? And if you did, would you share your proposal with me? Because it's very hard. The proposal you submitted. It's been a
Actually,
challenge.
I was telling you that the federal grants, we had a couple $1 million grants, and they sunsetted recently. And what San Diego has done to replace this is actually to use the Title I funds for the arts. But I didn't do it personally. In other words, they replaced the grants with that. So the district actually took this program over from us. Yeah.
Okay, someone has the answer? You have the answer?
I have the answer,
Okay.
really quickly. The key to using the Title I funds is to make sure that they're used as a tool to reach English language development goals. So it has to be written in your school site plan, and then the arts are used as a strategy to achieve that goal. Title1arts.org.
Yeah, and more and more school districts are doing that, and like I said, we'll post some links to that. Okay, so we are getting short on time here. We only have time for one more comment. But like I said, you should all stay in this room and talk to each other because there is so much in this room. I don't know. Okay, you're standing next to someone. Okay.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Cameron, and I'm a teacher out in Santa Clarita, where Cal Arts is. And we are fortunate out there to have a Kennedy Center, our Partners in Education cohort of teachers that's existed for about 6 years now, and I've been a part of that. And the effect of theater in particular on students across all demographics, not just ELLs, in my district and in my classroom has been quite stunning, actually. And I've been excited to hear you speak about the partnership between UC Irvine and San Diego and the study that you did with the students. And you mentioned the effect on attendance. And what I've seen in my classroom is with theater, you touched on it with the bullying over here as well, that the students are taught self-control. And to me, it's a better tool than our traditional classroom management when we actually teach students how to control their own behavior rather than teachers managing their behavior for them. And I'm curious if any of you on the panel have anything that you might be able to add to that conversation from your own experience, because if we don't have students who are managing their behavior, we're not teaching them anything. If you've seen a difference with the arts integration, and also if there was anything in your study in San Diego that you saw that relates to that.
Well, right. Actually, the reason we did the statistical study is that so many teachers had told us that attendance went up on those days. We didn't even think of it for ourselves, but then we actually got the attendance data from the district and we looked at it and voila, it had. I'd say that the technique that I've heard with elementary, especially early elementary teachers, that they like the most is simply the one that we started when we're doing a dance program or a dance exercise where they stand and they put their arms out, arm's length, and everybody stands arm's length away from each other, and then they move within their own space. They say that we call it the bubble. In other words, imagine there's a bubble and it's from arm's length on your sides, over your head, etc. And when kids on the playground or in line or something like that are getting a little antsy, they use it and they say it's very good. Also, they try to, if they're a little antsy, walking down the hallway, they give them a particular move that they use, and it works really well. Yeah.
Great. Kate, did you have something else, or Jim on?
To me, like you said, the students are controlling themselves. They've developed a sense of community. They're people. They know each other. They've been vulnerable. They've been honest, as I said. They've shared, and there are connections that they now all share. And that's better than any discipline that you could ever have, because that's just the way it should be. And it, like I say, it stems from just the curriculum and the activities and bringing arts into the classroom and looking at education in not so much a book and paper method. And so, yes, I agree with you.
And to add to that, I'm in the beginning of a residency right now, and there are a couple of, I affectionately call them miscreants. To me, wow, I just have to expand my life to embrace them, just keep stretching and stretching so that they are always included. But the exercises all have to do with self-control. That's what we're bringing in theater arts, is self-control and discipline, and making the comparison that if you're on a sports team, it requires discipline. If you're going to do anything positive in the world, it requires discipline. And so that's what we're doing. But who's this for? Is this for me? Who's the boss of you? Is it your mother? Is it Mr. Kuntz? No, who's the boss of you? You're the boss of you. So then that carries over. But it takes time, because there still are the holdouts, and in this one class, it's in my third time I've been there, and he's holding out. He's holding out, man. He's not doing anything that we're doing, anything. So when we finally got on stage this week, it was all about the 19 people who were doing it, and he's over there doing whatever he's doing. And instead of you get control of yourself, stand up, look me in the, no, it's, wow, so-and-so's got it, so-and-so's, wow, so-and-so's fierce, so-and-so's fierce. And after time, knowing you're not going to get any attention, you're not going to get any attention for doing that. You're going to get the attention for doing it. And gradually, he gets pulled into the community, and then it carries over. Once they learn how fabulous it is to have self-control and how much power you have, they want to control themselves, and then it carries over, as you're saying. Then you're not teaching it separately. It's integrated because they want to, and they see the results.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for being here and for sharing your stories and your comments and questions. Thank you so much, lovely panel. And also want to give a thanks to KPCC's in-person team. We hope that you all stay in touch with us and follow our stories. I know the education team is going to be working on a number of stories about English language learners, not just arts education, but in all different aspects over the summer. And also, just collaborate, because, I go around and I'm talking to arts educators all over town all the time, and I'm like, do you know so-and-so? Like, do you all know each other? Like, I just feel like there's so many resources in this room. And yes, thank you so much.